Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Male Podcast. Today's podcast is going to be a recast. Why? Because I was looking at the analytics, and for whatever reason, algorithms, people's habits, the Monday episodes get way more downloads than the Friday episodes, and it doesn't matter whether it's Alpha Male or Gunfighter Life or a short episode or whatever the subject is. It doesn't seem to matter. The Mondays do much better than the Fridays. So this is not to take away from new content. What the plan is to give a double dose of podcast on Monday. So on Monday, you should have 2 new episodes, one of Alpha Male and one of Gunfighter Life. And then I'll do a recast this Friday. So that's what you'll be listening to. I think a rather good recast. And this wasn't just one I haphazardly picked. This one I thought about and chose. And it's been a long time since it came out. And by God's grace, there's a lot of new listeners out there. So hopefully you enjoy this podcast. Remember, you're made in the image of God. That kind of ties into today's episode. Thanks, and have a blessed day.
Hello, welcome to the Alpha Male Podcast where we talk about what it means to be an alpha male in this modern society. As always, I am your host, Michael Melito. First and foremost, I am a Christian. I come at this from a Christian worldview and a Christian perspective because I can't do otherwise. I am a Christian and I make no apologies for that. Second, in my bio, I'm a man. Pretty important for the Alpha Male Podcast for the host to be a man, I think. So I am a man. And a little bit about me. Grew up hunting and fishing in the backwoods of Virginia. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Was infantry in the Marine Corps, combat veteran. Went to war a few times. Also, after the Marine Corps infantry, I went to work as an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps. Was an urban warfare instructor for quite a while. Then after that, I got out and went to work for LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department. I did several years in law enforcement. During the several years in law enforcement, was blessed to do regular patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. After my years in law enforcement, I'm currently back in a branch of the armed services. I won't say which one because not affiliated with the podcast, and won't say what I currently do, but very manly. Anyway, let's dive into today's topic of the Alpha Male Podcast. We're going to talk about one of the things that great men do that alpha males do, and that is to create. As men, we create with our hands, with our minds. We are creative beings by our very nature. You see, like I said, I'm a Christian. In the very beginning of the Bible, in Genesis, God said, in the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. We're made in the image of God. And what is God doing when He says this? The very first thing He does in Genesis that we read about God doing is creating. He creates. He creates the world and everything that we think and see and touch. He created it. And He made us in His very own image. We also create. It's in our nature. We are also called to create with our hands, with our mind. And that's something that great men do. And today's podcast, I'd like to encourage you, the things that I do and create may not be the same things that you love to do and enjoy and create. So don't think that you have to do the things that I give an example of. The main point of this podcast episode is so that you will reach out and create more, be more of a creator, more of a maker, more of a doer. Those are all traits of an alpha male. Taking something that was formless, that wasn't anything except for parts, except for just a hunk of material, and turning it into something great, turning it into something useful. That is a manly trait. That is a manly quality. That can take so many forms, but the bottom line thing of taking something and creating something out of it, that's manly. Whether it's taking a flat piece of spring steel from a leaf spring in a car and heating it up and hammering it into a knife, forging it, beating it with a hammer, and creating something more useful out of scrap. That's anything like that. It could be writing a novel. It could be creating a podcast, which is what I'm doing right now. It could be working on whatever you like to work on and fixing it. It could be fixing up an old junk car that's not good for anything, but you restore it and bring it back. It could be working on guns, something I enjoy. Taking something and making it better, improving it, creating something new, something unusual, something great. Whatever kind of man you are, there, I'm sure, is let's call it a hobby, a craft, maybe even your entire profession that you can adopt to make you a better alpha male. Part of your existence as a man should be creating something. Whatever form that takes. For everything there's a season. There's a time and a place in a man's life to rest, to work, to labor, to love, to do all those things, to make war, to make peace. As we read in Ecclesiastes, there's a time for all those things. But there's also a time in a man's life to create. There should be time in your life to create something, whatever that is. So do some self-examination in your life and see if you're doing enough creating. It will do a lot of things for you. I believe if you'll gain a skill, which is always important, it will make you more confident because you realize you can actually take something, form it in your mind, an idea, and mold it with your body, with your hands, and create something. That's a powerful thing. It builds confidence. It builds assurance. It's helpful, hopefully, not just to you, but to the people around you. You might create something useful, make the world a better place. I mean, these are all big things that we're all called to do as men. And as I've said in other podcast episodes for this podcast, there are many different kinds of men. There are the kind of men that wear nice polished dress shoes and a tie to work, and there are the kind of men who wear dirty work boots to work. There's all different kinds of men. Whatever kind of man you are, there's something that you can do to create, to form something. I'll give you an example. As for me, one of the things I like to create, I like to make my own ammunition. I'm a professional shooter. And one of the things that I like to do is make my own ammunition. Even though I could just go buy it at the store. I like to make it, one, for a couple different reasons. I can make it exactly the way that I want it to my specifications to meet the needs that I have more specifically than some mass-produced thing. I also like it because it's a little bit dangerous. It's a little bit of a dangerous hobby. You really got to pay attention and focus. You're making pretty much, tiny explosives. You're making your own ammunition. You got to focus on it. And when you're focused on that, the whole rest of the world just kind of melts away. It gives you that inner focus. You really got to pay attention to what you're doing. And that's true for a lot of crafts and hobbies where you create things. You really got to pay attention. And when you're focused on that one thing, it kind of alleviates all the other worries and stresses that you might have. I'm not a blacksmith, but I'm sure it can be the same for, blacksmithing. Like we talked about, the simplest thing I can think of to make something is a man taking a hunk of steel and beating it into something else. An iron gate, a knife, a sword, whatever it is. I'm sure that person, when they're dealing with that hot, red hot metal, has to really pay attention to it and has to focus on every stroke that he makes. So it's a common thing when you create something, you really have to focus on it. When you're focused on that, you're not worried about all the other stuff. And I think you'll find the more you create, the more you do that kind of stuff, the more you'll want to do it, the more you'll get a hunger for it. And one of the good, I guess you'd call it a life hack, I don't really like that term, but one of the useful things of an alpha male is, instead of what can I go buy at the store, or what can I pay somebody else to do, even if you have the money to do it, if you have the time, ask yourself, what can I do? What can I create? Is there something that I can make to fill this niche so I don't have to go buy it from somebody else? Is there something that I can make that I don't have to go buy at the store? Is there something that I can take these raw components of and make it more specific to the needs that I have, or create it for somebody else and help them out? Is there something that I can do with this mind that I've been given and these hands that I've been given to create something useful? That could be as simple as changing your own oil. Men out there, if you don't know how to change your own oil, maybe that's a good place to start. It's not really creating something, but it is maintaining something, and it is doing something with your own two hands. Even though I have the money to get my oil changed, most of the time, unless I'm really pressed for time, I'll do it myself. Because even if it doesn't save me a lot of money, because I like to get my hands dirty and get down there and see my vehicle and inspect it and know that it's getting done the right way. And if you're any kind of mechanically inclined, you can learn how to change your oil. I mean, there's very simple steps, and that's something you can do as a man. I think every man ought to have that skill to be able to change his own oil, or to be change his girlfriend's oil or his wife's oil or whatever, in case you need to. It's just even if you decide you hate it, it's still a good skill to learn, to know, to do. And it's something, especially in this day and age, you could just hop on YouTube and look up your make and model of car and figure out how to do it. See what everything looks like. I mean, it's as simple. I could walk you through it now. You take the drain plug out from under your oil pan gasket. You let the oil drain out. You take out your old oil filter. You put on the new oil filter. You put in you replace your drain plug in your oil pan, and you fill it back up with the correct amount of oil, the correct type and quantity of oil. And you check it, and then there you go. You got new oil in your car. And you gain that confidence that you can do that. Yeah, you could have paid somebody else to do it, but you did it yourself. And that's part of being a man. I'll give you another example. I do not drink. I don't drink alcohol. Just a personal choice. I just don't do it. I think some people are called to drink and some people aren't. I just don't drink. But anyway, even though I don't drink, I do make alcohol. I make beer. I make wine. That's depending on what fruits and grains and things are available seasonally where I'm at. I enjoy doing it. I make it just to give it away to other people, just because that's a skill that I wanted to learn how to do, that our forefathers knew how to do, that most men today have forgotten. It is useful for other things besides drinking. You can make your own alcohol. If that's something that you enjoy, if you go out to the store and buy beer that's mass-produced somewhere, you could make it yourself. You could learn how to do it. That's a skill you can learn. It's legal. It's fine to do. That's a manly skill you can learn. Like I said, I enjoy doing it like once a year, once every other year. I don't even drink it. I still enjoy it just because I can give it away and other people enjoy it. And it's nice to see somebody else enjoying something that was created by your own hand. Another skill a lot of you could learn to create and do yourself. You might start small with this one, but butchering. I mean, I grew up poor. And a lot of times, a lot of people, I guess, aren't like this. But I grew up, shooting squirrels and gutting them, or shooting rabbits and gutting them and eating them. And, every year I would go out deer hunting and take deer and put them in the freezer, and that we would eat on those. That was part of our food supply. I would go fishing, and I would catch a fish, and I would scale it and gut it, and I would clean it, and I would learn how to do that. And that's just something I've not always known how to do, but I've known how to do since I was very young. But if you don't know how to do that, you could learn as a man how to do that. Start small. Go to the butcher at your local grocery store or your local meat market and buy a big piece of meat, like an entire leg of something, an entire leg of lamb, an entire, beef quarter or whatever it is, and then start butchering yourself and learn how to carve it up into steaks. I enjoy grinding up my own deer meat and making my own sausage and making my own jerky. That's something you can do. Jerky at the store is expensive, and it's made by somebody else. You could buy a big lean cut of beef at the store, especially when it's on sale. Learn how to make your own jerky and cure it and season it any way that you like. If you like salt and vinegar, which is my favorite, make salt and vinegar jerky. If you like really super spicy hot, buy some ghost peppers and some jalapeno seeds and buy that big hunk of meat and cure it. And then there you go. You got your own jerky. And you did it yourself, and you saved a bunch of money, and it probably is better and fresher and less of the other crap that they put in there that you don't want in your body. That's just an easy example. Then you could graduate from that to buying an entire animal, buying an entire sheep or a goat and doing it yourself. If you're not in a place or in an environment or don't have the desire to go out and hunt, you can do that. And that's something, that jerky, that biltong, that sausage, that steak, you made it yourself. That's something that you can learn how to do as a man. Along those lines, it's just something I take for granted. Like when I'm out in the wilderness, which is one of my favorite things to do, if I see an edible plant, I'll harvest it and I'll eat it later. Learn what no matter what environment you're in. I'm in a pretty desolate environment right now, and I stopped about halfway on my journey today. If you can't tell, I'm in my car, if it sounds a little bit more distracting than normal. And I saw some juniper berries, and I was like, oh, I can eat those. That's something that you can do in any environment that you're in. Some part of the year where you're at, there's something you can harvest yourself for free and eat it. And that's food that you got with your own two hands. and you can make something out of that. You can cook with it. You can do whatever you want with it. Whether that's acorns, whether that's lamb's quarters, a real common one, whether that's just dandelions in your yard. I mean, you can eat those. Those taste pretty good. You can even make wine out of those. So learn to do with what you can get in your area. It will build confidence. It'll make you more self-reliant. It'll make you more of a creator, more of a doer of things, and that is a manly quality. Another real basic one that you can do, I think all men ought to know how to tie a few basic knots. It's in, if you go back and listen to the manly skills episode, that's something that every man should learn how to do. And that is even more basic and probably more primitive than forging a knife out of steel. You take a piece of rope or a piece of string or twine or whatever it is that was just straight, and you form a knot. And I'm sure you all know the basic just overhand knot, but I'm talking about learn how to do a square knot, learn how to tie a bowline, which is one of the very common knots, a masthead knot, learn how to tie a slip knot, learn how to tie a hunter's bend, learn how to tie all these different kinds of knots, learn how to form them out of a single piece of string, how to join two pieces of rope together. That's a simple skill that any man out there can do. Somewhere you've got a spare piece of cord or rope or twine lying around. You can, if you're just sitting there doing nothing watching Netflix, nothing wrong with that every now and then. Sit there, do nothing on Netflix, and practice tying your knots. Make something out of nothing. It'll be more productive, and it's definitely more manly than just sitting there. I had to pause it to think of some more, I guess I would say more urban-friendly, more suburban-friendly things to create. And the next one I'll give you is a real simple one. You could do this no matter where you live. Learn how to make your own bread. And just like drinking, I don't eat bread. It doesn't serve any purpose for me. I don't eat bread. I don't eat carbs. I just don't. But back when I did, I'd make my own bread. And that's something you can learn very easily how to do. Make your own Irish soda bread. Make your own beer bread. It doesn't have any alcohol in it. You cook all the beer off. But learn how to make those things. They're simple, they're cheaper, and they're way better and way better for you if you make it yourself. You know what's going in there. Making your own bread. And you might think that cooking or baking is not manly, it's womanly, but I would argue that some of the best chefs in the world are men. I would argue that, yes, it's great when a woman cooks for you, but especially men, if you're single, one thing a woman will really like if you can take her somewhere and cook for her, either at her place or your place, and you can actually make her a good, really good dinner, whether that's meat or bread or whatever it is, whatever your specialty dish is. Have one or two of those specialty dishes. That's another part of creating, taking those basic components instead of going out to a restaurant and paying $40 for a dinner, going to Walmart or going to whatever grocery store, fill in the blank, is near you, buying the components and making a better meal for $8, which can be done. I mean, you can do that, whatever that is. Learning how to do that, taking the raw materials and make something great out of it. It can be cooking. Cooking can be a manly thing. Taking a big rack of beef ribs and making your own sauce and throwing them on the grill and cooking them to perfection, that's a manly thing. So that's something, no matter what environment in the city, in the country, we can learn to do that. I guess getting back to the main overarching theme of this episode, it is manly to create. It is manly to take an idea in your head and form it with your hands and create something. It's something as men that we're called to do, that we long for. And if you're not doing it or not doing enough of it in your life, I hope this has inspired you to turn around and create something. I hope that this has been a useful, helpful episode. And if you're trepidatious about it or you have some reservations about it, it's like anything else, just do it. Try it. What's the worst that can happen? Try something that's not dangerous. Learn how to do. Try cooking something. If it turns out like crap, then throw it away and try it again. Or eat it and it tastes horrible, and that'll be your lesson to do better the next time. If you make a batch of something and it turns out bad, throw that batch out and make another one. Pay more attention. But what I'm saying is that it's important to create. I don't think you can live a happy, fulfilled life as a man if you're not creating something, whatever that is. It could be writing anything from writing a novel to, forging a knife out of steel. Any broad spectrum in between there. It is manly to create, and if you want to be that alpha male, create more with your hands and more with your mind. Thanks for listening to the Alpha Male Podcast. I hope this has been a good episode for you. If you like it, please scroll down. You're probably listening to this on iTunes, wherever you're listening, whatever platform it is. Give it a rating, leave it some stars, give it a good review. It helps more people find it. I hope it's been good to you, and I hope that you will rate it so that more people see it so they can be good to them. Thanks, and have a good day. A blessed day.